Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanstam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Yeah, we'll start. Thank you, Sapan Prabhuji, Vinala Mataji, Samyukta Mataji for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, Tandavat Pranams. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschadya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukhaṁ karoti vācālam pangam langāyate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram. Om apavitra pavitro va sarvavastam gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sabhyabhyantaram suchi. Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu. So we are at section 5. So I'm just sharing screen. Just a second. One second, I'm just sending one message. So actually the Srimad Bhagavatam sets I have ordered for distribution. So those books are coming to my home. I'm just coordinating with Lavanya. Just a minute. Hold on. Yeah. So we are reading from The Perfection of Yoga by Vaicharanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we are at section 5. So let me see that one. Black and white picture is so good. Supreme Lord Krishna. So yoga is rejected by Arjuna. It is very difficult to sitting in a different postures and meditating on Supreme Lord. In this age of Kali, it's very difficult. Previous time, Satya Yoga time, it was possible. And every yoga is prescribed method of self-realization is there. Satya Yoga, what in Satya Yoga? Meditation. And in Treta Yoga, sacrifices. And Dwapara Yoga, temple worship. And Kali Yoga, chanting the holy. Yeah. Yes, Mata. Now today we'll read 5th section, Yoga as Body and Mind Control. Yeah. Start Jen Mata. Vanilla Mata.
Chapter 5, Yoga as Body and Mind Control. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to fight, for he was a warrior and fighting was his duty. Although Krishna delineates the meditational yoga system in the 6th chapter, he does not stress it nor encourage Arjuna to pursue it as his path. Krishna admits that this meditational process is very difficult. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamsayam hi Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyana cha Grihyate. The blessed Lord said, O mighty son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Bhagavad Gita 6.35. Here, Krishna emphasizes the practice and renunciation as ways to control the mind. But what is renunciation? Today, it is hardly possible for us to renounce anything, for we are so habituated to such a variety of material sense pleasures. Despite leading a life of uncontrolled sense indulgence, we attend yoga classes and expect to attain success. There are so many rules and regulations involved in proper execution of yoga that most of us can hardly give up a simple habit like smoking. In his discourse on the meditational yoga system, Krishna proclaims that yoga cannot be properly performed by one who eats too much or eats too little. One who starves himself cannot perform yoga, nor can the person who eats more than required. The eating process should be moderate, just enough to keep the body and soul together. It should not be for enjoyment of the tongue. When palatable dishes come before us, we are accustomed to take not just one of the preparations, but two, three, and four, and upwards. Our tongue is never satisfied. But it is not usual in India to see a yogi take only a small spoonful of rice a day and nothing more. Nor can one execute the meditational yoga system if one sleeps too much nor does not sleep sufficiently. Krishna does not say that there is such a thing as dreamless sleep. As soon as we go to sleep, we will have to dream, although we may not remember it. In the Gita, Krishna cautions that one who dreams too much while sleeping cannot properly execute yoga. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily, nor can one infected by insomnia who cannot sleep at night successfully execute yoga, for the body must be kept fit. Thus, Krishna outlines so many requirements for disciplining the body. All these requirements, however, can essentially be broken down into four basic rules: no illicit sexual connection, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. These are the four minimal regulations for the execution of any yoga system. And in this age, one who can refrain from these activities, we have to test ourselves accordingly to ascertain our success in yoga execution.
Okay,
That-
Mataji. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Prabhupada quotes this one. Start with, yoga is body and mind control. Krishna's words. Sri Bhagavan words. Asamshayam mahabaho manodirnigramanchalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate.
This was the answer for Chanchalam Himana Krishna question.
Who might have understood Kunti. It is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. Krishna himself is saying that, yeah, it's undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. Then what needs to be done? But it is possible by constant practice and detachment. Detachment, if we, too much, materialistic sense gratification or desires, accumulation kind of mode, mind cannot be peaceful. And always, flying us, going here and there. But we need detachment. Detachment, Prabhupada very nicely says, attached to Maya, attached to Krishna, detached to Maya. Attached to Krishna, detached to Maya. Away from, Krishna himself said that, right? The tortoise example, how expands and, and then ఒక షెల్ లాగా ఎట్లా ఉంటుంది అది ఎగ్జాంపుల్ భలే ఉంటుంది అసలు యాక్చువల్లీ భగవద్గీతలో చెప్తారు కృష్ణుడు చెప్తాడు అది సో దస్ మెటీరియల్ వే ఆఫ్ లైఫ్ నే ప్రాబ్లం యాక్చువల్ అందుకే we cannot be peaceful all the times. So we just have to minimize those things, detach. So that is one thing. So how can we control mind? Constant practice and detachment. Vairagyena cha grihyate. Abhyasena, constant practice. Kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Krishna emphasizes practice and renunciation as ways to control the mind. But what is the renunciation? So renunciation today is hardly possible for us to renounce anything. For we are so habituated such a variety of material sense pleasures, despite leading a life of uncontrolled sense intelligence. We attend yoga classes, etc. Prabhupada is mentioning. There are so many rules and regulations involved in the proper execution of yoga. And most of us can hardly give up a simple habit like smoking. Prabhupada took an example of the smoking habit of people. Yeah. So, in order to control, a yogi can control in order to any yoga system. Prabhupada writes this. Any yoga system, what are the 4 regulative principles? Basic rules. These are the basic rules. 4 regulative principles are the basic rules for any yoga system. That's where no illicit sexual connection, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. Right? So minimum regulations for the execution of any yoga system. And in this age, who can refrain from these activities? So we see most of the people, illicit sex, intoxicants, meat eaters, gamblers, we see. So then how can they control their mind? Actually, these are the regulative principles for to strengthen our mind, actually. To strengthen our mind and, to get rid of these materialistic pleasures. So we are working for that's where there is one word, right? Param dristvani vartate. So in order to do that param dristvani vartate, at least to begin with, following the 4 regulative principles and chant the holy names. That leads to the higher state of happiness. Param dristvani vartate. Yeah. Who else joined? Okay. Just seeing. Yeah. Lakshmi Mataji. Okay. Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
How are you, Mataji?
I'm fine, Prabhuji. Thank Pranam, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. You are driving, no, Mataji?
No, Prabhuji. I'm at home.
At home. Okay. You want to read?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll read. Yogi, I'll start from this paragraph. Yogi Yunjita. Okay. Yogi Yunjita Satatam Atmanam Rahasi Stitaha Ekaki Yata Chittama Nirashir Aparigraha. A transcendentalist should always try to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Self. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Bhagavad Gita 6.10. From this verse, we can understand that it is the duty of the yogi to always remain alone. Meditational yoga cannot be performed in an assembly, at least not according to Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible to concentrate the mind in the meditational system upon the super soul, except in a secluded place. In India, there are still many yogis who assemble at the Kumbh Mela. Generally, they are in seclusions, but on rare occasions, they come to attend special functions. In India, there are still thousands of yogis and sages, and every 12 years or so, they meet in particular holy places, Allahabad, etc. Just as in America, they have a businessmen's conventions. The yogi, in addition to living in a secluded place, should also be free from desires and should not think that he is performing yoga to achieve some material powers, nor should he accept gifts or favors from people. If he is properly executing this meditational yoga, he stays alone in the jungles, forests, or mountains and avoids society altogether. At all times, he must be convinced for whom he has become a yogi. He doesn't consider himself alone because at all times the Paramatma, the super soul, is with him. From this, we can see that in modern civilization, it is indeed very difficult to execute this meditational form of yoga properly. Contemporary civilization in this age of Kali has actually made it impossible for us to be alone, to be desireless, and to be possessionless. The method of executing meditational yoga is further explained in considerable detail by Krishna to Arjuna. Sri Krishna says, Suchau deshe pratistapa stiram asanam atmana nati uchritam nati nicham shailajina kushotaram तत्रैकाग्रं मग्नः कृत्वा यथा चित्तेन्द्रिय क्रियः उपविश्यासने युञ्ज्यात् योगम् आत्मा विशुद्धये. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on one point. Bhagavad Gita 6.11 and 12. Generally, yogis sit on tiger skin or deer skin because reptiles will not crawl on such skins to disturb their meditation. It seems that in God's creation there is a use for everything. Every grass and herb has its use and serves some function, although we may not know what it is. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has made some provision whereby the yogi doesn't have to worry about snakes. Having acquired a good sitting place in a secluded environment, the yogi begins to purify the Atma, body, mind, and soul. The yogi should not think, now I will try to achieve some wonderful powers. Sometimes yogis do attain certain siddhis or powers, but these are not the purpose of yoga, and real yogis do not exhibit them. The real yogi thinks, I am now contaminated by this material atmosphere, so now I must purify myself. We can quickly see that controlling the mind and body is not such an easy thing, and we cannot control them as easily as we can go to the store and purchase something. But Krishna indicates that these rules can be easily followed when we are in Krishna consciousness. Of course, everyone is motivated by sex life, but sex life is not actually discouraged. We have this material body, and as long as we have it, sex desire will be there. Similarly, as long as we have the body, we must eat to maintain it, and we must sleep in order to give it rest. We cannot expect to negate these activities, but the Vedic literatures do give us guidelines for regulation in eating, sleeping, mating, etc. If we at all expect success in the yoga system, we cannot allow our unbridled senses to take us down the paths of sense objects. Therefore, guidelines are set up. So Lord Sri Krishna is all advising that the mind can be controlled through regulation. If we do not regulate our activities, our mind will be more and more agitated. It is not that activities are to be stopped, but regulated by the mind always engaged in Krishna consciousness. Being always engaged in some activity connected with Krishna is actual samadhi. It is not that when one is in samadhi, he doesn't eat, work, sleep, or enjoy himself in any way. Rather, samadhi can be defined as executing regulated activities while absorbed in the thought of Krishna.
Okay, Mataji.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Right. Yeah, thank you. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita how he made a yogi uh, in a secluded place sits on the deer skin. And this is the verse talks about, the method of executing meditational yoga described by Krishna. Uh, so ultimately he has to control his senses, especially mind. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high or not too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and then should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on one point. Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, 11 to 12 verses, above verses. Yeah. So why they sit on tiger skin, deer skin? Because reptiles, the snakes, the scorpions, they won't come near to that skin because of that. That is takeaway. But that's where let's say these yogis can save from uh, this creation, these creatures, and it seems that it seems that in God's creation there is use for everything, every grass and herb, and it's used to serve some function. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has made some provision whereby yogi doesn't have to worry about snakes, having acquired a good sitting place in a secluded environment. Ultimately the yogi is going to do, purify his mind, body, soul, and these things. Yogi should not think, now I will try to achieve some wonderful powers. No. The real yogi thinks, Prabhupada writes, who is the real yogi? The real yogi thinks, I am now contaminated by this material atmosphere, so now I must purify myself. Right? So here Prabhupada writes, we can quickly see that controlling the mind body is not such an easy thing, that we can control them as easily as we can go to the store and purchase something. It's not like that. We have to work for it actually. We have to work. But Krishna indicates that these rules can be easily followed when we are in Krishna consciousness. See, the regulative principles for higher purpose. When we follow regulative principles and chanting the holy names, actually, we are controlling our senses. Right? By regulative principles of, there is one statement actually, I forgot. Regulative statements for, see, it feels, no, give it up temporarily. It feels like giving up for the higher cause, giving up for the higher taste. Exactly, there is one statement is that I forgot actually. Regulative principles for take us and lead us to be situated in the Krishna consciousness. That's where, in our ISKCON, this is prerequisites. A person wanted to take initiation from a guru, first he has to follow these things, at least, come to the stage of, steadiness of chanting the holy names, 16 rounds every day, 1 hour 45 minutes or 2 hours to chant the holy names, 16 rounds, minimum 16 rounds, as Prabhupada set forth in this, from in the ISKCON, and following the 4 regulative principles, right? No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. Satyam, to establish ourselves in the pure consciousness, Satyam, Daya, Sauchyam, Tapa. Satyam, truthfulness, Daya, compassionate, Satyam, Daya, Sauchyam, cleanliness, Tapa, austerity. So when we follow regulative principles, that is what, in any yoga system, they have to follow the regulative principles. Otherwise, that's not a proper yoga. So in the Krishna consciousness, it is included. When we're following regulative principles, we are actually bhakti yogis. We call Prabhupada many times transcendentalists, bhakti yogis. These things are there. Prabhupada writes, good statement here, being in always engaged in some activity connected with Krishna is actual samadhi. It is not that when one is in samadhi, he doesn't eat, work, sleep, or enjoy himself in any way. Rather, samadhi can be defined as executing regulative activities while absorbed in the thought of Krishna. So these are the things. Samadhi means somehow or other our activities connects to Krishna. That's where we'll be in samadhi. No need to give it up. I mean, while eating, also we will be in samadhi. While taking prasadam, each remnants we feel that it's a Krishna's mercy. Prasadam meaning is Krishna's mercy. While work, yes, Krishna has given this job, so let me perform in that way. Sleep, Krishna has given this body, it has to put in proper rest, so let me take 6 hours good sleep. So everything in a regulated manner, a moderate way. Then a yogi can perform devotional service nicely. So another verse is a beautiful verse. Let me read. Asamyatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vyavasaya vasyatmana tu yatada sakyo vaptum upayata. For one whose mind is unbridled, Krishna, for the self-realization is difficult to work. So disturbing mind, they cannot focus on one thing, and that self-realization is the hardest path. Right. So that's the thing. So let us read this part. Who is the giant here? Let me see. I think Likita Mataji joined. Praveen Hyderabad. Who is this? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam.
Oh Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. How are you?
Good Prabhuji. Thanks. Prabhuji, you came back or still in US?
In US only, Prabhuji. We'll come. We'll come and association. We'll take personal association. But right now, I'm doing virtual association with all of you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Your dedication, Prabhuji, you are giving association for everyone.
You are doing services there in Aparna. Super. Prabhu, I'll give it to some other Mataji, then we will read. Huh? I will give it to you in some time.
Okay,
Thank you for joining again, Prabhuji. Actually, I see Likita Mataji, but it's okay. Samyukta Mataji, please go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. For one whose mind is unbridled, Krishna further says, self-realization is difficult work. Bhagavad Gita 6.36. Anyone knows that an unbridled horse is dangerous to ride. He can go in any direction at any speed, and his rider is likely to come to some harm. Insofar as the mind is unbridled, Krishna agrees with Arjuna that the yoga system is very difficult work indeed. But Krishna adds, he whose mind is controlled and strives by right means is assured of success. That is my judgment. Bhagavad Gita 6.36. What is meant by strives by right means? One has to try to follow the 4 basic regulative principles as mentioned and execute his activities absorbed in Krishna consciousness. If one wants to engage in yoga at home, then he has to make certain that his other engagements are moderate. He cannot spend long hours of the day working hard to simply earn a livelihood. One should work very moderately, eat very moderately, gratify his senses very moderately, and keep his life as free from anxiety as possible. In this way, practice of yoga may be successful. What is the sign by which we can tell that one has attained perfection in yoga? Krishna indicates that one is situated in yoga when his consciousness is completely under his control. Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva vasthite nispruha sarva kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. Bhagavad Gita 6.18. One who has attained yoga is not dependent on the dictations of his mind. Rather, the mind comes under his control, nor is the mind put or extinguished, for it is the business of the yogi to think of Krishna or Vishnu always. The yogi cannot allow his mind to go out. This may sound very difficult, but it is possible in Krishna consciousness. When one is always engaged in Krishna consciousness in the service of Krishna, then how is it possible for the mind to wander away from Krishna? In the service of Krishna, the mind is automatically controlled. Nor should the yogi have any desire for material sense gratification. If one is in Krishna consciousness, he has no desire other than Krishna. It is not possible to become desireless. The desire for the sense gratification must be overcome by the process of purification, but desire for Krishna should be cultivated. It is simply that we have to transfer the desire. There is no question of killing desire, for desire is the constant companion of the living entity. Krishna consciousness is the process by which one purifies his desires. Instead of desiring so many things for sense gratification, one simply desires things for the service of Krishna. For example, we may desire palatable food, but instead of preparing foodstuffs for ourselves, we can prepare them for Krishna and offer them to him. It is not that the action is different, but there is a transfer of consciousness from thinking of acting for my senses to thinking of acting for Krishna. We may prepare nice milk products, vegetables, grains, fruits, and other vegetarian dishes for Krishna, and then offer them to him praying. This material body is the lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Of difficult to conquer, of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and difficult to control. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world. Therefore, Sri Krishna has given us this nice prasadam, spiritual food to conquer the tongue. So let us take this prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify their Lordship Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu. In this way, our karma is sacrificed. From the very beginning, we are thinking that the food is being offered to Krishna. We should have no personal desires for the food. Krishna is so merciful, however, that he gives us the food to eat. In this way, our desire is fulfilled. When one has molded his life in such a way, devoting his desires to Krishna, then it is to be understood that he has attained perfection in yoga. Simply breathing deeply and doing some exercises is not yoga as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned. A whole purification of consciousness is required. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Jai. Hare Krishna. So everything is dovetailing is desires to Krishna's. So what is it? Just an example is given by Krishna, right? Everybody has to eat. So there is a lot of difference in consciousness, transferring consciousness, to eat ourselves or to, prepare for Krishna and offer them. That consciousness is different. So when we do that activity, prepare for Krishna, cooking bhoga and offer to Krishna, and and read some prayers, and that turns as a sanctified food. That means acknowledging every grain, every morsel of food, that everything is from you, Krishna. Please, we are offering, of course, everything created by you, but with love, and we are offering to you. Please take it. So he's going to, when we put in front of our deities at our home temples, he's there. Krishna is everywhere. So it becomes sanctified food. It becomes sanctified food, and that food it's called prasadam, because Krishna touched that. So that way we can dovetail activities. Example is given, this food item. There are many things, right? Engaging our senses, basically engaging in our senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Rishikesha means controller of the senses. Rishikena then says engaging in the service of Krishna. Dovetailing. So Prabhupada writes so nicely, desire. So we cannot be able to kill the desires. Desires are always there. How we transfer those desires from material desires to spiritual desires, right? And Prabhupada writes many times, we are not away from, earning money. Yes, earn money in a proper, honest means, proper way, and use it for Krishna's service, right? So many things we can understand, we can check in our lives. So what I am desiring for, and is it for material desire or is it for using for Krishna's service? Am I thinking in that way, right? So there is no question of desireless. Either we desire for material things or something for better, for our spiritual upliftment. Those desires helps us. So we always look for and work for the desire which helps us and purify us, right? So those are the sin. Why those regulatory principles again? So minimize those desires in a proper way, and following in a set forth by these Vedas, those principles. See, Krishna consciousness is a way of life. See, before coming to Krishna consciousness, some devotees ask me, like, how long you have to, get rid of this meat eating and intoxication, all these things. It's a lifetime. When we come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and we are trying to take initiation from a guru, it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime vow. It's lifetime practice in this lifetime to follow the regulatory principles. Then only those desires can be, dovetailing. Then is there the possibility of, understanding Krishna and with the Krishna's and Guru's mercy, we come back to God by doing these Krishna conscious activities, dovetailing activities, right? For example, somebody having a good reading habits, spending a lot of time in material books or material novels or cinema magazines, etc. Using that intelligence, using that, the sense, the reading propensity to read these books, spiritual books, scriptures. That is another way, dovetailing, ultimately dovetailing our senses for higher cause and dovetailing our desires to Krishna. Krishna-centered activity, simple thing. So this is what it is in this paragraph. Prabhupada writes. Material sense gratification. Material sense gratification means that is the desires again. So that's the thing. I see one more. Lakshmi Pasupulid Mata. Hare Krishna Mataji, you want to read? Or you are in hearing mode? Thank you for joining, Lakshmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Yeah, I'll be in hearing mode, Prabhuji, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Prabhu's. Sapan Kumar Prabhuji, please read.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. In the execution of yoga, it is very important that the mind is not agitated. Yatha Deepo Nivatasto Nengate Sopama Sparata Yogino Yata Chittasya Yunjato Yogam Atmanam. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Bhagavad Gita 6.19. When a candle is in a windless place, its flame remains straight and does not wander. The mind, like the flame, is susceptible to so many material desires that the slightest agitation, it will move. A little movement of the mind can change the whole consciousness. Therefore, in India, one seriously practicing yoga traditionally remained brahmachari or celibate. There are two kinds of brahmachari. One is completely celibate and the other is grahastha brahmachari. That is to say, he has a wife, he does not associate with any other woman, and his relations with his own wife are strictly regulated. In this way, either by complete celibacy or restricted sex life, one's mind is kept from being agitated. Yet when one takes a vow to remain completely celibate, his mind may still get agitated by sexual desires. Therefore, in India, those practicing the traditional yoga system under strict vows of celibacy are not allowed to sit alone with a mother, sister, or daughter. The mind is so fickle that slightest suggestion can create havoc. The yogi should have his mind trained in such a way that as soon as his mind wanders from meditation on Vishnu, he drags it back again. This requires a great deal of practice. One must come to know that his real happiness is in experiencing the pleasure of his transcendental senses, not the material senses. Senses are not to be sacrificed and desires are not to be sacrificed, but there are both desires and sense gratification in spiritual sphere. Real happiness is transcendental to meditation, sensual experience. If one is not convinced of this, he will surely be agitated and will fall down. One should therefore know that the happiness he is trying to derive from material senses is not really happiness. Those who are actually yogis truly enjoy, but how do they enjoy? Ramante yogino nante. Their enjoyment is unlimited, and that unlimited enjoyment is real happiness. Such happiness is spiritual, not material. This is real meaning of Rama. As in the chant Hare Rama, Rama means enjoyment through spiritual life. Spiritual life is all pleasure. Krishna is all pleasure. We do not have to sacrifice pleasure, but we do have to enjoy it properly. A deceased man cannot enjoy life. His enjoyment of life is a false enjoyment. But when he's cured and is healthy, then he's able to enjoy. Similarly, as long as we are in the material conception of life, we are not actually enjoying ourselves, but are simply becoming more and more entangled in material nature. The sick man is not supposed to eat. His eating unrestrictedly actually kills him. Similarly, the more we increase material enjoyment, the more we become entangled in the world and more difficult it becomes to get free from material entrapment. All of the systems of yoga are meant to disentangle the conditioned soul from this entrapment, to transfer him from the false enjoyment of material things to the actual enjoyment of Krishna consciousness. Krishna says, Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivat manatmanam pasyan atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grahayam atindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stihas chalati tatva yam labdhava chaparam labham manyate nadikam tata yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalayate tam vid tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samanjitam sa nischayena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa. The stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. If that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One form of yoga may be difficult and another may be easy, but in all cases, one must purify his existence to the conception of Krishna conscious enjoyment. Then one will be happy.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you. So by reading this, actually, I'm remembering there is one verse. Anandambudi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamruta Swadanam Sarvatma Sapanam Paramvijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Anandambudi Vardhanam. What is a boundless transcendental happiness? Boundless transcendental happiness. So that is the stage. The stage of perfection called trance or samadhi. When one's mind completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga, this is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, what happens in that joyous state? One is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the great difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contacts. So Krishna says these are the 4 verses, 20, 21, 22, 23 from 6th chapter. So if we put ourselves in Krishna-centered activities, actually we are in the samadhi. I mean, with full focus and attention. When we put full focus and attention towards Krishna-centered activities, we are in samadhi. Actually, Prabhupada writes, any activity which connects with Krishna is a samadhi. So Anandambudi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamruta Swadanam Sarvatma Srapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. When we chant the holy names, what happens? First it purifying. So here writes, right? Purified. Where is that? Yeah. One's ability to see the self by the pure mind to relish. How can we pure the mind? By giving constant engagement, by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Cheto Darpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagnirvapanam. So much dust accumulated in the heart. So many materialistic thoughts coming in our mind. So it's a purification. That is best is chanting the holy names of the Lord. When we chant the holy names, we are engaging our mind, we are engaging our tongue, we are engaging our ear to hear the holy names. So that way it acts. So once in the purified state, we get that happiness, transcendental happiness, and which is not measurable by this material coins or material gold or material dollars. It's a transcendental happiness, boundless. Prabhupada writes here, translations, boundless transcendental happiness that can be found in chanting the holy names only. Anandambudi Vardhanam. And it everlasting, ever experiencing, it's everlasting happiness, it's called. That's the thing. So in this 6th chapter, 20-23 verse, it's given that, once when when Krishna-centered activities, it gives real happiness, real pleasure actually to the soul, to the body and our mind. Yeah. And one more point I just want to share here. What is the meaning of, this is the real meaning of Rama. What is the meaning of Rama? Name. Ramante yogino nante. Their enjoyment is unlimited. And that unlimited enjoyment is real happiness. So unlimited enjoyment on the spiritual platform only, Prabhuji and Mataji, not in the material way. Okay. Unlimited enjoyment. Unlimited enjoyment is unlimited, can be found in only spiritual activities. And that leads only in Krishna consciousness. Such happiness is spiritual and not material. That is the real meaning of Rama. Of course, Supreme Personality of Godhead, another name of Rama is there. Rama means Ramante Yogino Nanta. That enjoyment is unlimited. Rama means enjoyment through spiritual life. Spiritual life is all pleasure, and Krishna is all pleasure. Right? That's another understanding. So everything, if we take up the process, eventually we get that experience. Yes, I am now peaceful. I am happy. My mind is at least somewhat. I'm getting taste on these spiritual activities. Yeah. So I think Praveen Prabhuji, yeah, thank you for waiting. Would you like to read?
Yeah. Thanks, Prabhuji. Yada hi, from here, Prabhuji. From here, na? Okay. Yada hi nendriyartheshu na karmasa anusajate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudas tadoyachate udharad atmanatmanam natmanam avasadyate atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripur atmanah. A person is said to have attained to yoga when having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Bhagavad Gita 6.45. We have to raise ourselves to the spiritual standard by ourselves. In this sense, I am my own friend and I am my own enemy. The opportunity is ours. There is a very nice verse by Chanakya Pandit. No one is anyone's friend, no one is anyone's enemy. It is only by behavior that one can understand who is his friend and who is his enemy. No one is born our enemy and no one is born our friend. These rules are determined by mutual behavior. As we have dealing with others in ordinary affairs, in the same way the individual has dealing with himself. I may act as my own friend or as an enemy. As a friend, I can understand my position as spirit soul and seeing that somehow or other I have come into contact with the material nature, try to get free from material engagement by acting in such a way as to disentangle myself. In this case, I am my friend. But if even after getting this opportunity, I do not take it, then I should be considered my own worst enemy. Bandhur atma manastasya ye na ये आत्मैव आत्मना जितः आत्मनस्तु शत्रुत्व वर्ते आत्मैव शत्रुवत्. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be greatest enemy. Bhagavad Gita 6.6. How is it possible for one to become his own friend? This is explained here. Atma means mind, body and soul. When we speak of Atma, insofar as we are in the worldly conception, we refer to the body. However, when we transcend the worldly conception and rise to the mental platform, Atma refers to the mind. But actually, when we are situated on the truly spiritual platform, the Atma refers to the soul. In actuality, we are pure spirit. In this way, according to one spiritual development, the meaning of the word Atma differs. As far as the Nirukti Vedic dictionary is concerned, Atma refers to body, mind, and soul. However, in this verse, Bhagavad Gita, Atma refers to mind. If through yoga the mind can be trained, then the mind is our friend. But if the mind is left untrained, then there is no possibility of leading a successful life. For one who has no idea of spiritual life, the mind is the enemy. If one thinks that he is simply the body, his mind will not be working for his benefit. It will simply be acting to serve the gross body and to further condition the living entity and entrap him in material nature. If, however, one understands one's position as spirit soul apart from the body, the mind can be liberating factor. In itself, the mind has nothing to do. It is simply waiting to be trained. And it is the best trained through association. Desire is the function of the mind, and one desires according to his association. So if the mind is to act as friend, there must be good association. The best association is a sadhu, that is a Krishna consciousness person or one who is striving for spiritual realization. There are those who are striving for temporary things, asat. Matter and the body are temporary, and if one only engages himself for worldly pleasure, he is conditioned by temporary things. But if he engages himself in self-realization, then he is engaged in something permanent, sat. Obviously, if one is intelligent, he will associate with those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of self-realization through one of the various forms of yoga. The result will be that those who are sadhu or realized will be able to sever his attachment to material association. This is the great advantage to good association. For instance, Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna just to cut off his attachment to this material affection, because Arjuna is attracted to things that are impending the execution of his own duty. Krishna serves these things. To cut something, a sharp instrument is required. And to cut the mind from its attachments, sharp words are often required. The sadhu or teacher shows no mercy in using sharp words to serve the student's mind from material attraction. By speaking the truth uncompromisingly, he is able to serve the bondage. For example, at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks sharply to Arjuna by telling him that although he speaks like a learned man, he is actually fool number one. If we actually want detachment from this material world, we should be prepared to accept such cutting words from the spiritual master. Compromising and flattery have no effect where strong words are required. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Only a few paragraphs there. Yeah. So here, what he's saying, that ultimate point is our mind is friend when it becomes control, and our mind itself enemy when it is unbridled, uncontrolled. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, with that verse, Prabhupada writes, Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. For him, that is Krishna only saying that, for him, who is the yogi, who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. Period. 6.6. 6 chapter 6 verse. So train, that's where there are statements. Tame the mind, train the mind. Why? Because see, mind only in our body, the mind defeat us every time. Sense gratification, so many things, so many things. You know, our mind is that's where there are many in the outside world also. Mind management. So if mind is trained, everything becomes, the senses will automatically control. So Krishna says is, how can we conquer the mind then? Right? How can we conquer the mind then? So there, it has to give proper engagement, which helps us to control the mind. Right? This everything is here. Prabhupada writes in elaboration. Association, basically. Right? Desire is the function of the mind. See, mind, what the mind is actually. 3 things, right? You all know what the mind is going to do. 3 things. Mind is going to do always thinks, feels, wills something. Thinking, feeling, willing. Thinking something, having to feel something, and willing to have something. Always going on. A desire, and that way the desires are formed. Desire is the function of the mind, and one desires according to his association. Right? And association very important role plays. That's why we always have to be in a good devotee association. Whenever satsang is there, without invitation, we just go and sit and hear and associate with devotees and do some seva. That way mind is going to be controlled. Any activity, any spiritual activity, Krishna conscious activity, any activity which leads to control the mind. Actually, yeah. So again, the frame is there, right? Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktiruchyate. So that's the thing. So we just have to look for permanent things. Right? There are those who are striving for temporary things. Asat. Matter and body are the temporary. Matter and the body are temporary. If one only engages himself for bodily pleasure, bodily concept of life, Prabhupada writes, bodily concept of life. What is the bodily concept of life? Ahara nidra bhayamaidunamcha. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Is conditioned by temporary things. But if he engages himself in self-realization, then he is engaged in something permanent. The spiritual activities, the remembering name, hearing names of Lord, those are all permanent things. Spiritual, it's on the platform of soul, spirit soul. And that's why it's called Sat. Always be there, never lost, right? Whatever performing devotional service, never lost. Obviously, if one is intelligent, he will associate with those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of self-realization through one of the various forms of yoga. The result will be that those who are sadhu or realized will be able to sever his attachment to material association. Devotional life begins with sadhu sangas. Sadhu sanga, sadhu sanga, sadhu sanga vai, lavamatra sadhu sanga, sarva siddhi hoy. Yeah, I think Vanilla Mataji, it's up to you, Mataji. If you, since you said right, 8 o'clock, you have to another 5 to 10 minutes, then we will wrap up the call. Okay, Mataji, it's up to you. You can stay or you can leave. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining today, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad Pranam. That is the thing. So, Sat, Asat. See, these two, we always have to meditate about what is Asat, what is Sat, what is temporary, what is permanent, what is eternal, what is flickering. So this Sat, Asat, Sat, Asat, Sat, Asat, always we have to meditate. What is temporary, what is real, what is not real, what is it is going to help me. Severe is attachment to material association. This is the great advantage to good association. For instance, Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, just to cut off his attachment to his material affection. In the beginning, Arjuna on the bodily concept of life, my grandfather, my brothers, my. If I kill them, I may incur sin. So I don't want to fight. But that's not the proper way. As Krishna is giving the entire knowledge in the 45 minutes, 1 hour time. He touched everything. And he become ultimately Karishye Vachanam Tava. Arjuna is become his disciple. And he is accepted all the knowledge and fight. And he has given the spiritual knowledge as well. Basically, Bhagavad Gita is about spiritual knowledge. Atma Tattva Jnanam. Atma Tattva Jnanam. What is matter, what is spirit, we will be able to understand from Bhagavad Gita. Right? So that's the thing. So yeah, another 2 paragraphs there. So let us read and we'll conclude. I think we read up to this one, right? So, desire is a function of the mind, and one is according to association. If the mind is to act as friend, there must be a good association. And we have to read this one, right? This paragraph and these 2. Yeah. Anybody likes to do? Because we all did verbs.
Prabhuji, let me try, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The best association is a sadhu, that is a Krishna conscious person or one who is striving for spiritual realization. There are those who are striving for temporary things, asat. Matter and the body are temporary. And if one only engages himself, Prabhuji, one moment. Sorry. And if one only engages himself for bodily pleasure, he is conditioned by temporary things. But if he engages himself in self-realization, then he is engaged in something permanent, sat. Obviously, if one is intelligent, he will associate with those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of self-realization through one of the various forms of yoga. The result will be that those who are sadhu on or realized will be able to sever his attachment to material association. This is the great advantage to the good association. For instance, Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna just to cut off his attachment to this material affection, because Arjuna is attracted to the things that are impeding the execution of his own duty. Krishna serves those
Rudy, I
things.
think we have read this one.
Yes. Let her read. Yes, I got the point. Yes, go ahead, Mata.
To cut something, a sharp instrument is required, and to cut the mind from its attachment, sharp words are often required. The sadhu or teacher shows no mercy in using sharp words to sever the student's mind and material attractions. By speaking the truth uncompromisingly, he is able to sever the bondage. For example, at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks sharply to Arjuna by telling him that although he speaks like a learned man, he is actually fool number one. If we actually want to we want detachment from this material world, we should be prepared to accept such cutting words from the spiritual master. Compromise and flattery have no effect where strong words are required. In Bhagavad Gita, the material conception of life is condemned in so many places. One who thinks the country in which he is born is worshipable, or one who goes to holy places and yet ignores the sadhus, there is likened unto an ass. As an enemy is always thinking of doing harm, so the untrained mind will drag one deeper and deeper into the material entanglement. Conditioned souls struggle very hard with the mind and with the other senses. Since the mind directs the other senses, it is of utmost importance to make the mind the friend. जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानोपमानयोः. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Bhagavad Gita 6.7. By training the mind, one actually attains tranquility, for the mind is always dragging us over the non-permanent things, just as an unbridled horse will pull a chariot on a perilous course. Although we are permanent and eternal, somehow or other, we have become attracted to non-permanent things. But the mind can be easily trained if it is simply fixed on Krishna. Just as when a fort is safe, when it is defended by the great general, if Krishna is placed in the fort of the mind, there will be no possibility of the enemy entering. Material education, wealth, power will not help one to control the mind. A great devotee prays, when will I be able to think of you constantly? My mind is always dragging me uh, but as soon as I am able to fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, it becomes clear. When the mind is clear, it is possible to meditate on the super soul. The Paramatma or super soul is always seated within the heart along with the individual soul. The yoga system involves concentrating the mind and focusing it on the Paramatma or super soul seated within the heart. The above quoted verse from Bhagavad Gita indicates that one who has conquered the mind and has overcome all attachment to non-permanent things can be absorbed in the thought of Paramatma. One so absorbed becomes free from all duality and false designations. Hare
This is
Krishna.
done. This is done. Our time also. Mataji. So thank you very much. So actually, in this chapter, see what is this chapter talks about? This talks about. See here, yoga as body and mind control. Yoga. What is that yoga? Bhakti yoga. When we perform bhakti yoga, mind and body will be controlled. How can we understand? Actually, take home point of this chapter is there is beautiful verses actually 3-4 verses culmination. Ambarish Maharaj. Anybody remember that verse? Actually, I wanted to recite that verse and will conclude. Yes. Ambarish Maharaj, he prays. Beautiful verse actually. I wanted to open and recite for all of our purification. Just let me share. Slokas. Anyone remember that verse? Ambarish Maharaj, how to control our mind. He is given an example actually, exemplary devotee. Hare Krishna.
No, Prabhuji. Let me.
Samyukta Mataji. So this today's topic is yoga as body and mind. Yoga. So in that connection, Sapan Prabhu, you want to add anything, Prabhu? You wanted to add take home points. Then before I
Yes,
do
yeah,
that,
yeah.
you just
Yeah, so
explain.
what I remember from this session is that initially Srila Prabhupada says it is so difficult to control the mind. It needs so much regulation for sleeping, regulation for eating, regulation for sex life, and all that. So controlling the mind through the yogic path is very difficult and takes a lot of discipline. Then we also discussed that one also needs to be desireless to be in the path of yoga. But in Krishna consciousness, one does not need to be desireless. One can desire for Krishna, so it makes controlling the mind very easy. So if whatever we do, if it is for Krishna and centered around Krishna, then we don't have to be desireless and control the desires. And we also learned about in the last part we also learned about mind. A mind can be your best friend, and mind can also be your worst enemy. So we need to engage our activities thinking about Krishna to make meditation easy. So by meditating on Krishna, we also make our spiritual progress much easier.
Perfect. Anybody likes to add before I start, discuss one important of this chapter?
Okay, this one is, I think he said that everything, all senses used in Krishna's service, like cleaning the temple, see the deities. Right, Prabhuji? This one?
That's what it is. Yoga is body and mind control. What is that yoga? That is called bhakti yoga. Ultimately, using all our senses to please the Lord. That way, mind will be controlled. Yes, I will do this. That's the point. Correct. Yes, Prabhu. Anybody likes to add anything? Samyukta Mataji, Lakshmi Mataji, Lakshmi K Mataji, Lakshmi P Mataji. Anybody likes to share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Add anything?
So, Prabhuji, I learned today like importance of regulative principles, Prabhuji. So it will help us to take limited food. One should not sleep more than 6 hours. So we can do like Satyam, Daya, Shaucham, Tapa. We can follow these things, Prabhuji, if we follow regulative principles. Next, what is Samadhi? How they will do, what they do. Real yogi thinks that he has to purify himself.
Correct.
And controlling the mind is not easy thing, Prabhuji.
That's true. Krishna himself saying, okay.
Yes, next, importance of eating prasadam, Prabhuji. First, we have to honor prasadam to the Lord. So that will help us to purify ourselves, and it will help us to control our mind also, Prabhuji.
Yes.
It is possible to understand about Krishna.
Correct. Moderation.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Moderation.
Next is to,
yeah.
It will minimize our desires also, Prabhuji. Next is how to control our mind.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. We have to train the mind.
Train the mind and tame the mind. Yes. Nice.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thinking, feeling, and willing.
Mind's activities.
Yes,
how we
Prabhuji.
think, how we feel, how we will, what wanting things, what desires basically, Willing means desiring. What we desire, what we feel, what we think matters. Thank you, Mother. Okay. Okay. Lakshmi Mother, you want to share anything? Yeah. So I wanted to share this, we have recited Samyukta Mata in our morning calls. Beautiful prayer, you only recite. I'll read this translation. Translation, anybody likes to read, please? This is what completely free from material desires. The addressing, how do we free from material desires? This is beautiful prayer from Srimad Bhagavatam. Anybody likes to read?
I can read, Prabhupada. Translation. Maharaj Ambrisha always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple, Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavana. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of Tulsi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaja Ambrisa never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires. Hare Krishna.
That is what the solution is given by this example of great Raja Rishi, Maharaj Ambarish Maharaj. Right? How do we get rid of these material desires? Again, same thing again. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. How we see? Meditation. His mind meditating upon the lotus feet. His words describing. His hands cleaning the temple. His ears hearing the words. And his eyes seeing the deity, beautiful deity form. And is a sense of touch by touching devotees. Hugs. Devotee hugs are blissful, right? And sense of smelling the fragrance of tulsi and flowers. Engage his tongue, taking only prasada. Engage his legs, walking into temple and holy places. His head bowing down before the Lord. His desires, all desires, serving in the Lord. 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarisha never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He desired for Krishna. He never desired for his own sense gratification. That means he wanted to serve the Lord. That is a desire actually. Wanted to serve the Lord in different ways and means. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way, Prabhupada writes last line, this is the way to increase attachment. How can we attach to Krishna? This is the way. Since using our senses to please the Lord, to serve the Lord. So that way we get the increasement in the attachments. Attached to Krishna, detached to Maya. Maya means material activity, simple. We always say Maya, which is not material activities, material sense pleasures. So the Lord, and be completely free from all material desires. Then only our mind will be properly trained. Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you, Sapan Kumar Prabhuji. Mata, you want to recite? Since we practiced in our morning calls, you want to do recite?
Yes, Prabhuji. I'll try, Prabhuji.
Yeah, nicely recite.
Yes, Prabhuji. सा वै मनः कृष्णपदारविन्दयोर् वाचांसि वैकुण्ठगुणानुवर्णने करौ हरेर्मन्दिरमर्जनादिषु श्रुतिं चकरार्च्युता सत्कतोदये मुकुन्दलिङ्गालयदर्शने दृशौ तद्भृत्यगात्रा स्पर्शेऽङ्गसङ्गमम् ग्रानं च तत्पादसरोजसौरभे श्रीमत्तुलस्या रसनां तदर्पिते पादौ हरे क्षेत्रपदानुसर्पणे शिरो हृषीकेशपदाभिवन्दने कामं च दास्येन तु कामकाम्यया यतोत्तमश्लोकजनाश्रयारधि Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Nice.
Prabhuji.
Very nice. Thank you, Mataji. That is what the today's topics take home point. We have to serve Lord. That way our mind will be controlled. Right? So, best example. There are many exemplary devotees. Ambarish Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, all the different personalities in the Bhagavatam. We see that how they are engaging. Kunti Devi, Kunti Devi. Always remember Lord. Pandavas. Krishna is, that's where, see, when we remember Krishna, Krishna is with us. Simple thing to understand, Pandavas. Why Krishna is always with them, Pandavas? Because they never ever away from remembering Lord, Supreme Lord Krishna. Okay. So today's chapter is yoga as body and mind control. Which is the yoga we have to adapt? Bhakti yoga we have to adapt. That way, that is a proper engagement to our mind. By doing that, our mind and body will be in our condition, and the mind is going to be our friend. Krishna himself said, when we control, it's a friend of us. Thank you very much for joining today. Thank you for the opportunity to do this service. Let us meet on Monday. This call is Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Despite Friday, you all are having different engagements. Thank you for giving time to Krishna and Srila Prabhupada by reading these books, small books. Let us meet on Monday evening again. Sorry, today I connected a little late because of, I woke up a little late actually. Last night I was working. So thank you again. So see you all on Monday. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Itai Gaur Hari Premanande Hari Hari.
Prabhuji, can you stay for 2 minutes?
Yes.
Let them drop off. Prabhuji, I have some doubts, so just want to clarify for the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhuji, एक तो ये जो बसु हैं, ये बसु कौन है? जैसे भीष्म पितामह जो थे वो 8th बसु थे, प्रभास. तो ये बसु कौन होते हैं? इनका क्या? हाँ.
Where did you read, Prabhu? I have to refer. I need to check. What is that? Where did you read?
प्रभु जी, एक्चुअली हमारा ये फर्स्ट भगवद गीता का फर्स्ट चैप्टर स्टार्ट हो रहा है ना, तो भीष्म पितामह के बारे में आ रहा था. तो कई लोगों को भीष्म पिता बारे में पता नहीं कौन थे, ये कैसे हुआ. तो वो ये 8th बसु थे ना, 7 बसु जो थे वो उनको कर्ज किया था, तो वो निकल जाते हैं. 8th बसु जो था ये भीष्म पितामह है. तो ये ब्रह्मचारी और इनका विवाह नहीं होगा और ये सफर करेंगे. तो क्वेश्चन आया कि ये बसु कौन होते हैं? तो आई टोल्ड देम कि बसु जो होते हैं देवताओं के एक पार्षद टाइप होते हैं, कुछ ऐसे बोल दिया. पर मैं आई टेल देम कि ओके, आई विल लेट यू नो एग्जैक्टली व्हेन आई रीड दिस प्रॉपर्ली फ्रॉम द स्क्रिप्चर. लेकिन अभी क्या आ रहा है कि स्क्रिप्चर में मेरे को पता नहीं कहाँ देखना है, गूगल में ढूंढ रहा हूँ तो वो बहुत कुछ दे रहा है, अजीब सा दे रहा है। अग्नि, ये ध्रुव, धम्यु, पृथ्वी, चंद्रमा, ये सब वसु होते हैं।
Yes, Prabhu.
हम्म
So just want to share a few things. Yeah, 8 vasus, right? So that's come from Krishna only, Narayana. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 vasus are born. And from the Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. Everything from only. So he only, so these personalities come from Krishna only, Prabhu.
करेक्ट जी, बट इनका रोल क्या है? जैसे इंद्रा जो देवता है उनका रोल है, तो ये वसु कहाँ फिट होते हैं वहां पे उस लाइन में?
Yeah.
उनका रोल क्या है?
I'm just referring, Prabhuji. I'm just referring. I'll let you know. I'm reading something. There are sound incarnations of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to utilize them. Okay. Every man, animal, and like Bhishma. Okay. Versus. Right under and plenary portion of the one of the 8 verses of the race of the other 8 verses and the demigods system. See, the sons of Vasu were known as the 8 Vasus. Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam purport, Prabhu. The sons of Vasu were known as the 8 Vasus. Just hear their names. So Drona, Prana, Dhruva, Arka, Agni, Dosha, Vastu, Vibhava. So their names there. What their function? Okay, the 8 sons born of Sahadeva, such as Paravasuta, and were exact incarnations of the 8 Vasus, heavenly planets. Highly. So what exactly you want to know? What their function?
हाँ, उनका रोल क्या है? वो कहाँ देवताओं में कहाँ किस कैटेगरी में आते हैं, कहाँ आते हैं, और उनका फंक्शन क्या है कौन बेसिकली?